FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's July 26, 2017. Still in Vancouver at the Sprott Conference, but business life must go on. Time waits for no one, and time has finally caught up with Janet Yellen. Andy Hoffman is with us now. Andy, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. Janet Yellen will have to be reappointed in the coming months because her term runs out in February. Same thing goes for Haruhiko Kuroda in Japan, who, when he had his policy statement last week, gave a shockingly dovish statement, just as Janet Yellen did with her ding-dong, the Fed is dead statement on Capitol Hill a week ago, and just as ECB head Goldman Mario Draghi did on the same day as Kuroda when, yet again, it was whispered that he was going to say something dovish, but instead he said something hawkish, but instead he went the other way and went unbelievably dovish, which is, of course, what he's going to have to do forever because of the Ponzi scheme that is quantitative easing.
Yeah, so we're going to QE. Well, we can't even really give it a number anymore. It's QE to infinity, as Jim Sinclair called it, and now it's becoming more obvious by the day.
Well, now it's covert QE. I mean, it's so comical. I mean, I sit here talking about the gold cartel for 15 years, and there's tons of evidence of it, tons of evidence that's out there in the open, admissions, that kind of stuff, and then the rest is just plain obvious. And everyone kind of and the Fed's job is to monetize bonds, and the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which has been around since 1933's job is to manage currencies and gold. By the way, that's in their mandate. Mm-hmm. And it's outside of the of Congress. There's no one that they need to report to other than the Treasury Secretary and the President. And then, of course, is the President's working group on financial markets, whose job is to manipulate the stock market. But despite the fact that the Fed has its, quote, open market operations each day at 10 o'clock a.m., which just happens to represent the key attack time number 1 for gold and the bottom of the Dow 99% of all trading days, no one ever dares to consider maybe they're buying stocks or maybe they're buying more bonds than they say they are. I mean, after all, last year we had, $500 billion of sales of Treasury bonds by the Chinese, Japanese, Saudis, and Russians, and yet interest rates went down? Yeah, I mean, no one could possibly, it must have been U.S. retail investors that bought those $500 billion of bonds, especially when the Fed was talking hawkishly all year and raising rates. And as for the stock market, at least the Swiss and the Japanese admit to buying stocks. And to the point of, in Japan, they now admit to owning 71% of all the equity ETFs, the Bank of Japan. And we were going over this Bank of Switzerland, which owns, they own gargantuan amounts of U.S. stocks. I don't even know what the total is for Swiss stocks and European stocks. Right. But the fact is, of course, they're buying more stuff lately, just like, it goes back to the whole TARP thing when the powers that be were taken by the crisis by like a deer in headlights. And so they were they didn't know what to do. They figured they got to go ask Congress with TARP, and even if we strong arm them, at least it's in the public. And then, then they realize, we can just do this stuff without asking. It's more effective anyway. So there's not a doubt in my mind that the Fed, especially at 10 o'clock a.m. each day, is in there buying stocks. And therefore, that's a big reason why we haven't had to have a crisis, why we have record low volatility in both stocks and bonds, why this is the 4th longest string of days. It's like 300 trading days without a 5% correction, because the Fed is in there with their partners in these various manipulations organizations, holding stocks up. But, you can't you can't hold off economic Mother Nature forever. And the dislocations that have been created between the real world and the financial markets, as I call them, dot-com valuations in the Great Depression era, are just getting too gargantuan. That's why you've had all these the social unrest and all the elections. And the same, of course, goes in the like the precious metal markets, where you now have, like I wrote my Holy Grail Bullish Silver Statistics article the other day, where I finally found proof that the expectation in the mainstream is of a 30% plunge in supply, as we've been postulating for years, just like this a 20% plunge in gold supply that's expected in the next 5 or 7 years. So, you're going to keep pushing prices down, and production falls apart in the miners and reserves and the outlook for actually getting gold out of the ground at the same time that you're printing money to do this and causing the serial collapses in currencies and the weak economy, et cetera. And eventually you're going to hit the wall. And the same goes for oil. The Saudis can do all they want, reducing exports to the United States, but sending it elsewhere because they know that all the algos here in the States are always fixated on the weekly production figures, and they won't focus as much on the less transparent numbers that come out, like in Indonesia or something like that. I mean, there's too much oil out there, and there's not enough gold and silver, and all the things moving forward. The monetary fundamentals, the supply demand fundamentals are moving in our direction, and then of course you have the twin killer of the fiat regime, the Bitcoin, which is slowly but surely moving its way into the scene. It's only going to make it more difficult for this centralized colossus that's already on its last legs to maintain control.
Yeah, very true. And I told you I've got a source, a friend of a friend. I don't usually go by that, but this one I know is about as reliable as it can be. The Federal Reserve is actively involved with other central banks working on cryptocurrencies. Well,
what do you mean by working on?
I mean, they are working on countries bringing out their own cryptocurrencies. The U.S. doesn't supposedly intend to do it, at least for a while, but they're going to watch as other countries around the world bring them out.
But that's different. That's different from cryptocurrency. That's, creating their own blockchain and digitizing the war on cash.
Yeah.
But whatever the United States Federal Reserve or government issues is not going to be worth anything, because no one will. First of all, there's no way they would ever put it out with a cap on supply. It'll be just like $1. So it's really more of the war on cash thing. And that's very dangerous, because if they force you into these blockchains where they can watch every single transaction that they control, that's centralized, that's one thing. But as far as, actual Bitcoin, which is decentralized, the governments can't touch it. They have no idea what's going on. And it's, by the way, only going to become more anonymous and decentralized as these scaling solutions move forward, like this SegWit, which we just got locked in, and it will officially go in the system in about maybe 2 weeks. I mean, it's going to be a real danger as a monetary threat. At the same time as you say, the government's going to step up their war on cash. And a big reason they're going to step up the war on cash is because of the massive amount of tax revenues they're going to lose from things like Bitcoin. So they're going to become more draconian within their own borders, and capital controls and even using their own blockchains are going to be weapons they use. And that's why, it's so amazing. Record complacency, record low volatility. Yeah. No one understands just how many, world-changing, once-in-a-lifetime type things are going on around us.
And don't forget, we're getting to the season of crashes, right?
Yeah, I don't put as much credibility into that now that markets are 100% rigged. But that said, we get with each passing day of the destabilization of financial markets relative to the real economy, and the spiraling debts, and now you have all the major central banks talking devishly. I really can't wait to see what Janet Yellen's going to do today after her "Ding Dong, the Fed is dead" speech. She said, due to the rate, the normal real rate being lower than usual, we're just about there already. And she said it a week ago to Congress. Yeah. And right now there's a 3% chance of a rate hike today. There's an 8% chance in September. There's barely a 0.5% chance in December, as people start to realize that this is a Ponzi scheme. It can never end. And you throw in the fact that she is trying to become reappointed, and that Trump has already said, I like Janet Yellen because she's a low interest rate person like myself. Well, if she says anything other than the dovish things that she must say to maintain the Ponzi scheme, she's going to lose her job. And guess who's going to get it? Former Goldman Sachs chief operating officer, who's now Trump's right-hand man. So it's a lose-lose for America. It's a win-win for precious metals. And it's a lose-lose for pretty much anyone that's relying on this centralized system. You see this whole thing with Obamacare. It's getting to be such a joke, because they keep trying to convince you that they're trying to repeal it, but the things that they're trying to repeal it with aren't any different than Obamacare. And meanwhile, they can't even get enough votes. They're done. It's not ever happening, as I said. And what we are also heading to in the crash season, Kerry, is the debt ceiling. And think about how dysfunctional government is right now. They literally can't get anything done. And at the same time, there's clearly you can call it what you want. This soft coup is a perfect term. People want whether it's the insiders or the outsiders, they want him out. And to think that we're going to get through this debt ceiling crisis without something much worse than 2011, especially because the debt ceiling is now 50% higher than it was when we lost our AAA credit rating in 2011, is I think pretty naive. I think it's going to get pretty ugly because we will run out of cash by October, and Congress is about to go away for a month for recess, and when they come back, it's going to be September.
I know. Yeah, we're right up against it. So you think they're going to use this as an excuse to try to undermine Trump, huh?
Well, look, Trump is he's in an unwinnable situation, and he's definitely not made things easier on himself. I mean, the smart thing to do would have been to say, let's let Obamacare fail and blame it on them. But he's, it's just like when he's running for office saying it's a big, fat, ugly bubble, and that the unemployment numbers are fraudulent. And then as soon as he gets in, he says the stock market's great because of me, and the unemployment rate is great because of me. Well, if you want to take credit for all this, well, then you're going to get it, because whether they want to undermine him or not, which they do, he's going to be undermined because nothing good will come of this. And, I said it months ago, I don't think he'll make it 4 years, and it may just be because he can't take it anymore, because they're just, these forces really want him out. They did everything to keep him in, and they're doing everything to get him out.
Yep, they want him out. I mean, it's really obvious. The swamp, the thing from the swamp of the Potomac has reared its ugly head, and they'll do whatever they have to
but they'll do whatever it takes. And by the way, you know what today is? I just didn't realize. I knew it was July. I hadn't even thought of it. Today is the 5-year anniversary of we will do whatever it takes to protect the euro. 5 years. And look at what's happened to Europe since.
Yeah, it's 5 years, huh? And that.
Yep, we're in the middle of the biggest QE program of all time. We have been in negative interest rates for close to 3 years. The euro initially collapsed, and now it's come back to about where it was back then, simply because the U.S. dollar is destroying itself, because they're starting to talk more dovishly, and I guess because Macron beat Le Pen, it gave him a little relief rally. I mean, it's one toilet paper against the next, but the point is, when you think of what horrible shape Europe is in compared to where it was 5 years ago, and what are they going to do now? They said we're going to keep it going at least to December and possibly beyond, and they even added new language in last week's meeting that if things get worse, we may extend or increase it. And this is at a time where, again, it's like the Japanese, but the stocks, they're running out of bonds to buy. I just read yesterday they now own like 15% of the corporate bonds. And I don't know, probably a third of all the sovereign bonds. And it's like, at what point is this going to stop working?
Yeah, at some point for sure. Hey, by the way, we were always talking about cartels. Have you read the articles about what German automakers did to avoid or cheat on emissions tests for diesel engines? It's been going on since the 90s. They've been meeting actively on it, and this is like another nail in the coffin, because, that's Germany's big cash cow industry.
Well, look, I wrote about this yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago. It's all a blur. I think it was my audio blog that I did on Monday morning. Maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I wrote an article that says OPEC proving, like the London gold pool, that all cartels fail. Because, look, they just announced last month that OPEC's production for June was the all-time high. Okay, even Saudi Arabia cheated, and when you throw in like Nigeria and Libya, all-time high. So we're sitting there to believe there's going to be a reduction in this glut when OPEC is producing an all-time high 7 months into its cut. And the only reason it's going now is because it went up a few bucks now, is because look, OPEC, Saudi said maybe a month or two ago, we're going to dramatically cut down our exports to the United States. We'll keep sending our oil around. We're still producing more than ever, but we're going to send less there. And the reason is obvious. It's because you have all the algorithms working here. Like in 15 minutes, you'll have the DOE report. And last night we had the APR report. And it's kind of like the jobs report once every month, where all the algos in the world are focusing on what the fraudulent U.S. jobs report is. And if it's, quote, better than expected, then they slam gold and they buy stocks, etc. And that's all they're aiming at, because as soon as they made that announcement, all of a sudden you see exports to the U.S. plunged, and what do you know? The crude oil draws increased here, but the oil just went somewhere else, and everyone knows it, and that's why the price, as it always does, will come back down. And then of course you have what's going on in Germany now. It's now probably at least a year old since we learned that Volkswagen was cheating on all their emission tests, and so not only are they liars and thieves, but they destroyed the resale value of millions of cars that people had bought with credit on subprime loans, and of course destroyed the reputation of Volkswagen in this country forever. Then we found out that countless other General Motors is part of this scandal now, and so are several others. I don't remember which the others. I think Audi might have been. I'm not sure. But so you have that going on, and then as we learned this week, BMW, Mercedes, and Volkswagen have been meeting for 20 years to discuss all aspects of the market. They've been colluding about absolutely everything, including, among other things, emissions purification, i.e. how to cheat the system.
Fraud.
I forgot what do they call those things? Cheat things, the devices.
I'm not.
You know, they have a name. I can't remember what the name is, like cheat devices, whatever.
Yeah,
but so you
Emission
got cartels everywhere.
Emission hacks.
Yeah. You have cartels everywhere, but don't worry. There's no gold cartel. I mean, I only just showed in my article today that silver has been capped now for the last 8 days at the 12 o'clock Capital Resort, 8 days in a row. Wow. And I also showed the dead ringer algorithm on the Dow, which means it bottoms at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when the Fed has their open market operations, 8 days in a row also. But no, don't worry. Those 6 Sigma or 7 Sigma things that occur all the time, they're perfectly natural.
Of course, we know that. Absolutely.
Not to mention when the commercials, you know, the cartel at the COMEX have been covering their short positions at the COMEX like never before. I mean, I don't know if they'll get to net positive. They haven't been net positive in silver in at least 30 years, and in gold, it's not since 2001. But they're certainly moving in that direction right now at a time where the price is being capped as they're doing it. So remains to be seen what happens. Today will be a very interesting day with Janet Yellen speaking. I mean, no one's really expecting much because there was never a rate hike in the cards. They don't like to do things right before the summer vacation. Definitely and now that she gave her speech last week, I mean, are they really going to turn tail and start to talk hawkishly? Then it'll just look ridiculous. And of course, that'll probably be the death knell of her reappointment that she wants so badly.
Yeah, I am totally inclined to agree with you. Just going back to the auto cartel that doesn't exist, like all the cartels, none of them exist, of course. When we talked about Volkswagen, I explained that all the auto companies are their own best customers, meaning, they'll buy Mercedes will buy fuel injectors from BMW. BMW will buy transmissions from Audi. And that to think that this thing was just limited to Volkswagen is purely false. They will all be brought down in it. And, well, I didn't know that they were going to be brought down, but I said they're all going to be doing it. They all will have been guilty of it. Whether they get caught or not, it's another story. And now it just broke. And you got to wonder who leaked that
Volkswagen
story.
Has I wrote it back at the time. I think it's like 100,000 employees.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are going to lose their jobs. I don't even know how many Mercedes or Daimler-Benz, which is a big industrial company, has in BMW. I mean, it's a lot of people, and some of them are going to lose their jobs because they are definitely going to lose some market share as a result of this.
Yeah, well, diesel vehicles in the U.S., diesel passenger vehicles, very minute portion of the market. But Asia, which is the growing market, it's all diesel. And Europe is mostly diesel. You do see gasoline-powered cars, but for the most part, it is diesel. And there's, environmental nut jobs there in Europe. This is the seeds of a revolution here, Andy. I think it's getting glossed over. I don't think the significance of this event is being appreciated. And who leaked it? Who leaked it and why? That's what I want to know, because it obviously came from a leak. The government has known they've been doing this since they started because they monitor everything. And those people who work for the auto industry wind up in government, and people who are working in government wind up in the auto industry because it's such a huge industry. So this is a conspiracy not just of the auto cartel, but of government and the auto cartel. They couldn't have done all this without the approval of the EU. All right.
Right. But apparently the hypothesis, the trial balloon that they've tried over this past year, particularly since Trump got in and spoiled all their global domination plans, is that as long as they can hold stock and bond markets up, people don't seem to question anything. I mean, I saw yesterday, we have this horrible economic data across the board. I mean, just horrible,
awful.
Like I haven't seen before since the 2008 crisis. And yet it says consumer confidence just rose to like the highest level since the year 2000. I mean, first of all, I don't believe any of those things are statistically significant,
Right.
but and far fewer people own stocks than did way back when, at the turn of the century. But I mean, really, things can get very quiet and complacent when you have stock and bond markets that never go down.
Yeah.
The problem is that as you get more and more disjointed from reality, you're increasing the chances that beach ball, which is pushed, to uncharted depths, gets pushed back up, and inevitably it will. Technology, market manipulation machines, high frequency algorithms are not going to defeat economic mother nature, even though they certainly certainly slowed her down.
It can't happen, but technology has enabled them to do things that we never believed were possible, Andy, and they've done them. And somebody once said to me, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. And unfortunately, government has never figured this out. When it comes to government, everything is on the table. They can do what they want, and you don't like it, that's too bad. And that's really the world in which we live, Andy, and that's why it's all going down.
Right, but the concept is there are some basic laws, economic laws, and while there may be less economic laws in paper markets, maybe the Japanese buy up the entire stock market, and yet they still make prices go up because they create these new algorithms that allow them to wash trade with themselves at higher prices. I mean, you see wash trades all the time. I have no doubt that they can create that technology, even though I'm sure some people would suspect that something fishy is going on. But in physical markets, again, I just did all these articles on gold and silver and platinum. I mean, their production profiles are plunging. Their reserves have plunged. The production's going to fall. And of course, the very act of printing all this money and holding things up and causing monetary inflation makes the demand for such a thing like gold go up at the same time as it does, for cryptocurrency, and drives more people away from this kind of centralized dying fiat regime economy. And the same thing again goes with oil. You want to prop the price of oil up, you're going to get more oil production. Eventually, it's going to swamp the planet, and it's going to be just a bigger cataclysm because there'll be so much more capacity that has to be unwound. So we watch and wait when we're in the right areas. I mean, I just said the other day, maybe I think I said it a week ago. I said I really, for the first time ever, and I've been dealing with this sector 15 years now, I just don't see any real downside to precious metal prices. And I don't mean it can't go down at all, but I mean from these levels, from 12.50 gold and 16.40. I think the industry has been so decimated at a time when the demand is not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to go up, and the inventories that are out there, that have been out there to hold the prices down, are on fumes. I have, from a risk-reward profile, I don't think that's ever been better.
No, I agree. So, hey, by the way, emails. I forgot to announce in the beginning, I'm not in my studio, so I don't have all my notes and everything, but you got a question for Andy, myself, email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. I'll be back by next week from Vancouver. I hung out with Andy Sheckman last night and the Miles Franklin crew. We went on a cruise, just in Vancouver Harbor. It was a lot of fun.
With the Sprott people.
Yeah, the Sprott people, kind enough to invite me on this trip. If you haven't been to a Sprott conference, it's really worth going to. They really treat people the way you want to be treated, and they're just all around good people. And it's just interesting getting everybody's take. It seems to me that it's pretty well attended, the conference, but I don't think it was a massive sellout like last year when gold prices were taking off and the mining stocks were making a run. But it's still pretty well attended, and it's always nice to be in Vancouver in the summer, away from like the horrid heat and humidity of South Florida, that's for sure. But we got a lot of interesting things ahead. We got the meeting. New home sales were up a little bit, but Andy, even the new home sales figures, before the crash, they were selling almost 1 million new homes a year. Now it's at 600,000, and they're celebrating these numbers every month, but we're still like 30-40% below what the historic average of new home sales was.
Right, and then home affordability is at a record low as disposable income, more debt service payments as a percentage of disposable income is at a record high 21%, and now rents are at an all-time high as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because the too high prices that have been caused by the Fed's easy money policies have driven people into renting. So now they're going to overbuild the rentals. So when you do eventually have a crash in the single family houses, you're going to have a glut of them too. But the point is that they're propping up the prices for the 1%, and it's a detriment to the 99%. That's where you have revolutions.
Yeah, and you have like Blackstone. They've set it up so they can securitize all of their single family homes, the tens of thousands of single family homes that they bought at the bottom of the Depression. And Blackstone's setting up this rent to own program. So all of these things that just like are really bad for markets, that are really destructive of free markets, which I always thought capitalism was all about. You have free markets with government not intruding to set prices, and now we're living in opposite world. It's like a bizarro world for Seinfeld. That's what I feel like we're living in. And it's a bizarro world, compliments of the Fed, and it's not going to end well. I mean, we know this, Andy. We know it. History is on our side, or I should say, not so much on our side, but against them. You just can't spin illusions for indefinite periods of time and expect everybody to just go along with it like 1984 in lockstep, never questioning authority. Yeah, it works in books, but the reality is that nobody's buying into it anymore, and that's why you need to be prepared. I have my issues as far as cycles and cryptocurrencies, but that is the future. Cryptocurrencies, there's not even a question about it.
Yeah, like, you're talking about how people are fighting back, and they're fighting back in many ways, voting in Donald Trump for one. Yeah. And my guess is that once Emmanuel Macron fails in France, he already has the lowest approval rating after 1 month of any French prime or president ever.
He was having a honeymoon. They loved him to pieces. Like, he was like France's.
I think they were just scared
Trudeau.
of Marine Le Pen, to be honest with you, because she's pretty radical. And just like they were scared of the Save Our Swiss Gold referendum, they were scared that markets would crash. And but look what they got. And the situation in France is not going to get any better, just like it's getting worse everywhere else. So, these things are all going to be in due time. And as far as cryptocurrency, that's another major way that people are going to fight back. Probably the biggest way, because that's where the root of all evil. And who's the one who said, it was J.P. Morgan, I don't need to run the country, I just need to print the money.
Yeah,
well, if you can't print the money, and trust me, if Bitcoin gets as big as it may well become, they can't print the money. And that is a revolution in and of itself. And it's also, as I've said, it's going to, and my why Bitcoin will make gold and silver go up, it's going to make it a lot easier for gold and silver ownership. Like, we have to, I was writing the other day how it's like we always have this sword of Damocles over our head. Like, well, when gold goes up, it's going to be anarchy, and they're going to confiscate and ban it and all this and stuff. And I'm saying, no, I think because crypto is going to become such a threat that not only they're going to focus their time trying to stop it and be like Don Quixote flailing at windmills to decentralize. They won't know how to do it.
Which is a great play.
But at the same time, just as they're running out of supply, they're going to run out of focus on precious metals. But more importantly, when they start worrying more about cryptocurrency, and by crypto I really mean right now Bitcoin. There's no one else that's in their league.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Right now. I mean, the world can change, and I don't think
it's going to change.
Yeah,
it will.
But when they do, I said, people might actually be able to enjoy a rise in gold and silver. I said, if they're so worried about crypto and gold is just what it always should have been, just a store of value, not the like currency, like a gold standard, which is never going to happen. The price could go up 5, 10, 20 times, and it's not like you're going to worry about the government banning it. They'll be more worried about stopping Bitcoin from taking all the tax revenues. So that's just a hypothesis I have, and we'll see how it plays out.
Hey, that guy made $200 million in Ethereum, and nobody knows how to tax him, who he is, anything.
Well, it's funny you should say that, though. Yeah. Did you see the news last night about the SEC?
Oh, well, you tell me something that's going to surprise me.
I'll tell you, there's 2 big pieces of news yesterday, which are extremely bullish for Bitcoin. And again, this is a perfect example of the flailing at windmills, right? Now, remember we had the SEC said no to a Bitcoin ETF a few months back.
But there is one out there, a crypto.
January, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
So they said no, and part of it was because it's kind of unregulated, and they don't, which is a smart move in their part, because I don't think it would work out well for them if they allowed it. But now they just approved options. Like Merrill Lynch and all these guys are going to be, listing and trading options. All of a sudden, they're trying to control it and put it more into the public eye. Don't think that's a smart move on their part. But better yet, and again, anyone who listens to me knows I don't just not dislike Ethereum. I despise it. I think it's the worst invention ever. I think it's like the bankers' response to Bitcoin.
Right.
It's very centralized. It's got a lot of scams attached to it.
Oh, God,
and more importantly, the SEC can go after it. And just yesterday they said, remember you had that DAO, the Ethereum Storage Center, which was hacked last year, and then they had the fork and created Ethereum Classic. Well, that should have been regulated by SEC law, and now all ICOs should be regulated by SEC law.
Didn't I say this was coming? I mean,
we both said, of course it's coming.
It's not a question. They're going to do it. And look, I am not a fan of government regulation, but in theory, there is a thing called good regulation, which protects when regulation really works. It protects the participants in a market from unfair practices. It's just they're a referee. They don't pick winners and losers. They're just there to keep the playing field level.
Well, my response in this topic would be yes, sort of, because I worked on Wall Street on the sell side for 10 years, and I was a sell side analyst covering oil field service and drilling, and 99% of my job was being told by the bankers what to do and how we can spin everything, any kind of deal that came around the corner, so that we can sell it and get a big fee. So they are definitely in bed, and there's no,
don't get me wrong. I'm talking pure theory here. I
know.
Yeah.
And the Chinese wall is dead, and the Glass-Steagall, that's all dead. But yes, I mean, the ICO was almost a comedy to me. To think of dot-coms that are completely unregulated without even Wall Street looking at it. So, of course, that's going to be a big blow to the ICO industry, as it should be, because most of them are scams. And that's only going to cause more money to leave Ethereum and those things and go into Bitcoin and make it more powerful. And so, again, it's an example of the government thinking that they were going to hurt the sector, and they're going to wind up helping Bitcoin, because there is no Bitcoin Inc. You can't regulate Bitcoin.
No, it's out there.
It's going to make it stronger. I just think it's funny.
It's great. So, anyways, go check out Andy's work over at milesfranklin.com. The company's Miles Franklin's Precious Metals Investments. And check out our site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Subscribe to Andy's newsletter and ours, and Andy's frequent audio blogs, the Twitter feeds at Kerry Lutz, the Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. Email us. We love getting your emails. That email address is kl@kerrylutz.com. Andy, I'm going to finish up here in Vancouver. Be back next week at our regularly scheduled time and place, and you be well.
You too. Safe travels.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.